Imagine living inside a massive stone castle. Thick walls, tall towers, long echoing halls. It's winter, and outside, snow is falling endlessly. The wind howls through the hills, freezing everything in sight. But inside the castle, there's no modern heating, no fireplace in every room, and no electric blanket to hide under. So how did people survive? How did castles stay warm in those deadly medieval winters? At first glance, castles look like the worst possible place to spend a cold winter. They were built from solid stone, with high ceilings, drafty corridors, and tiny windows. These features made them great for defense, but terrible for keeping in heat. So the fact that people not only lived in them but thrived through harsh winters is a puzzle worth solving. To understand their secret, we need to step back in time to the medieval era, when survival wasn't about luxury, but clever design, smart habits, and teamwork. The first thing you notice about a castle isn't the warmth, it's the cold. Stone walls absorb the chill and hold it for hours. But that same stone also works like a thermal battery. Once heated, it can retain warmth far longer than wood or plaster. So, instead of fighting the cold, medieval builders learned to use the castle itself as part of the heating system. The main strategy: concentrate heat where people actually lived. Most castles didn't try to warm the entire fortress, only the rooms that mattered. The Great Hall, for example, was the heart of medieval life. During the day, everyone gathered there: nobles, guards, servants, guests. Food was cooked, stories were told, and business was done all around a single massive fire. This wasn't your normal fireplace. It was a central hearth, a large open fire pit in the middle of the room. The smoke rose up and escaped through a hole in the roof or through slits in the walls. It wasn't perfect. Smoke sometimes lingered, but it gave off incredible heat. And because everyone stayed near the fire, the sense of community helped people forget just how cold the stone walls really were. Later, as castle design evolved, fireplaces were added, but not everywhere. Only the lord's chambers, kitchens, and some guest rooms had them. Firewood was precious, and maintaining multiple fires was hard work. So warmth wasn't about heating spaces, it was about heating people. Let's picture a winter night in a medieval castle. The fire in the great hall burns low. Servants close heavy wooden shutters across the narrow windows, sealing out the icy air. Thick tapestries hang on the walls not just for decoration, but to block drafts. Underfoot, rushes or straw mats help insulate the stone floor. In the lord's private room, a canopy bed with thick wool curtains traps body heat like a tiny tent. 2 people could survive the night comfortably, even when snow covered the world outside. It was a combination of architecture, materials, and lifestyle that made it work. The builders knew that thick stone walls were excellent at trapping temperature once warmed. They used narrow corridors and small windows to reduce airflow and prevent heat loss. The layout of the rooms themselves followed logic. Kitchens and bakeries, which always had fires burning, were often placed near living quarters so that the warmth could spread through the walls. And then there were clothing and bedding, the personal heating systems of the medieval world. People wore layers of wool and linen, slept under fur blankets, and used bed warmers, metal pans filled with hot coals that heated the sheets before sleeping. Even gloves and caps were worn indoors during harsh months. Every detail mattered. One of the most brilliant medieval innovations was the use of braziers, portable metal containers filled with burning charcoal. These could be carried from room to room, giving localized heat where needed. They weren't as powerful as a fireplace, but they allowed flexibility and saved fuel. Of course, castles weren't just homes, they were fortresses. Warmth had to be balanced with safety. Open fires posed risks, especially in buildings with wooden roofs or tapestries hanging everywhere. So, fire was always watched carefully, often by servants assigned specifically to keep it burning safely. But not all castles relied on fire alone. Some of the most advanced designs had underground heating systems. For instance, in parts of medieval Europe, engineers borrowed ideas from ancient Rome, the hypocaust system. It used tunnels beneath the floors to carry hot air from a furnace. The result? Warm floors, even in the middle of winter. While not common in every castle, traces of these systems have been found in certain royal and monastic buildings. Then there's the role of food and drink. During the coldest months, people consumed warm soups, spiced wines, and roasted meats that helped the body maintain internal heat. Meals were more than nourishment, they were survival rituals. And yet, perhaps the most surprising factor in all of this was community. People rarely spent time alone. They gathered together, shared warmth, shared stories, and even shared sleeping spaces. The combined body heat of groups made a huge difference. A crowded great hall on a winter's night could feel surprisingly comfortable despite the icy weather outside. When we imagine medieval life, we often picture hardship and cold. But these people were remarkably adaptable. They turned stone fortresses into living, breathing homes. Every detail had a purpose. Tapestries stopped wind, shutters sealed warmth, and heavy curtains divided large rooms into cozier spaces. In wealthier castles, servants would bring heated stones wrapped in cloth to place at the foot of the lord's bed. In poorer ones, people relied on layers, furs, and closeness. Even pets played a role. Cats and dogs were not just companions, but additional warmth on cold nights. Interestingly, the cold itself helped define medieval culture. People adjusted their routines to the seasons. Work slowed down in winter. Feasting, storytelling, and crafts took center stage. The cold months were a time of gathering, reflection, and patience. Surviving winter wasn't just physical, it was emotional and social too. And if you were to step into a real medieval castle today, even with all our modern understanding, you'd still feel that same mixture of chill and coziness. The massive stones hold memories of hundreds of winters. The faint traces of soot on ceilings, whispering stories of fires long gone. So, how did castles really stay warm? They didn't fight nature, they worked with it. They built thick walls to hold warmth. They lived close together. They used fire wisely, designed rooms strategically, and wore clothes made to last. Warmth came not from one big invention, but from 1,000 small, clever choices. There's something poetic about that. In a world without electricity or modern insulation, people found comfort through craftsmanship and community. Every flicker of a candle, every woven curtain, every hand-sewn blanket was part of a larger survival system that kept life going, century after century. And when you think about it, maybe we haven't changed that much. Even today, when winter comes, we still gather near warmth, whether it's a fire, a heater, or just the company of others. The castles of the past remind us that comfort isn't just about technology, it's about creativity, resilience, and the human spirit's refusal to freeze in the dark. So next time you see a stone castle on a snowy hill, don't just see cold walls and empty rooms. Imagine the glowing fire at its heart, the laughter echoing through its halls, and the ancient ingenuity that kept entire kingdoms alive through winters that would have frozen us today. If you were a servant in a medieval castle, your experience of winter was very different from that of the lord or lady who ruled above you. Most servants slept in shared quarters near the kitchens or stables, places that were naturally warmer thanks to constant activity, fires, and animals. Horses, believe it or not, helped heat the surrounding air.